going on, guys? Cool. Can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up in the chat, a one. Cool. Thank you, blessed. Madhukama. Cool. All right, let's see. All right. 1 second. Deepak, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, Chris. How are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. Give me 1 second, my friend. All right. We're doing a little live stream today. I know people are rolling in. I'm going to give everybody a second to come in. Cool. All right, let's jump in. Let's see. Let me share my screen. All right, you guys can see this?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah.
So there's two groups of people here. We're live streaming, by the way. So first time, this should be cool. Two groups of people here. There's people that came to see kind of a lesson on data modeling. And there's a second type of people here that have already spoken with my team and that just have a few questions that they want to ask me before they join the program. So if you're in that second group, go ahead and put your questions in the chat and I'll get to them and answer any questions, concerns, anything you might have had from when you spoke to one of my colleagues. So go ahead and put it in the chat now. And I'll answer them as we go. And I see a few familiar faces. Nina, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Hi from Boston.
You're in Boston right now?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm munching on my lunch. My apologies.
No worries. I would be too. Cool. All right. Keep the questions rolling. Some of you are DMing me. That's okay. You can put it in the chat. You can DM me. So what I want to talk about right now is how to ace the data modeling interview. So who here has actually done a data modeling interview? Just put a one in the chat. Or DM me. Yep, that's fine.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, like, is a data modeling interview is kind of a special interview, or is just like a particular role on itself outside data engineering?
It's a good question. So data engineering, it's going to have a bunch of different subjects, SQL, Python, etc. Data modeling is the one that I think is very interesting because I don't see many people teaching it the right way, right? And so, what's up, Juan? And so I think that's the one I want to cover today because I think we need to talk about how you actually should approach doing the interview itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, doing data modeling interview itself, right?
Say that again.
Is it like doing data modeling interview itself?
Yeah, exactly. It's a subject that's hard to study by yourself. And so that's why I wanted to host this.
Oh, thank you. Because I just joined the team, so I'm still in SQL. I'm still doing SQL stuff, so that's why I like, okay, let me join.
No worries at all. And so what I actually like to do sometimes, by the way, instead of me talking at you guys here, because I find that stuff doesn't really work, I'll sometimes pull in people to just do like a mini mock interview. So let's do that. Jose, you said you have a mini mock interview, right?
Yes, on Friday with Nicola.
So let's do this, man. Let's do one right now. Are you game for that?
Okay. I might not be as prepared as I want to be by Friday, but I have been watching your other videos.
No one ever is. Don't worry, man. No one ever is. And I think it'll be good for everybody here. And by the way, like I said, if you already spoke to one of our people, one of our colleagues, and you're not in the program yet, that's totally fine. Put your questions in the chat. And we'll go from there. Okay. Going a little slow so that people can come in. And make sure to mute yourself if you're not highlighted. Pratik, you said you want to join as well. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, what's a good one? What's a good one? I really like Spotify, man. So let's take this. So Pratik and Jose, you guys spoke first. So I'm going to kind of do a little mock interview with both you guys here for data modeling. By the way, Deepak, you actually have 15 years of experience in data, mostly on-prem. How can you guys help in the cloud and environment? Any examples of success stories? Yep, for anybody, again, that's not in the program, success stories, go to personalized training tab. We got a ton of video testimonials here. If you want to speak to somebody, just ask the person you already spoke to. And that way you can just talk to one as well. Does that make sense, Deepak? Yeah, I mean, look, if you have 15 years of experience, you're the perfect client, right? You just have to upgrade to the cloud. So it's pretty straightforward. Yes, let me zoom in. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Okay. Jose, let's go with you first, buddy. So with this data modeling question, what's the first thing you should do?
Use
if you
the
had to guess.
product. Use
Say that
the
again?
product. Use the product.
Okay, so you went through some of the trainings.
A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to explain that a little bit?
Yes. If we're going to go on an actual interview, and we know, of course, the company we're going with beforehand, we want to try and use the product if we haven't already been using the product.
Yes. And this one specifically, we're talking about Shopify.
And coincidence, I want to try using Shopify myself as of last night.
I was about to say, for this lesson, let me do Spotify actually, because I think that's something you guys probably have used.
Oh, Spotify. Okay.
Yeah. Let me change it up a little bit on you last minute. Okay. Perfect. So, and yes, if you have questions, just DM me. I see a few people DMing me directly. That's totally fine. Yeah. So use the product. So say that again. Why is that important?
Well, I guess because we would, by using the product, we would kind of have a better understanding of the type of data that's being collected about the users.
Spot on, my friend. Spot on. So this is something very important about data modeling. If you guys have ever done a Python interview, which I'm sure a lot of you have, or a SQL interview, the worst way to study, I'm sure you guys have noticed, is you go on LeetCode, you do a bunch of questions, and you try to memorize how to actually do the question. The problem with that method is there's no way you're going to go through 1,000 different questions. Similarly, with data modeling, you're not going to be able to think about every question that you can get asked, right? It's just not going to happen. So what you want to do is you want to develop mental frameworks as to how to approach the question. So in this question, use the product. That's the first step, or I call it step number 0.
Yeah, join one call now that started by 12. I'll talk to you later. All right.
Hey, Godsend, let's move.
Search those stuff when I tell you. And go. We'll talk later. Bye.
Let me mute other people. So Jose, if the first step is to use the product, the Spotify product, right? How would you approach answering this question here? Right? So basically the goal is to build a recommendation system. How would you approach that? Or Pratik, because I don't know if Jose is still there.
Yes, I'm here. Okay, so I'm without reading the whole question, the first thing I hit is users listening history. So we want one of the questions. The first question is how far do we go back?
Yeah. So Jose, and again, Jose's in the program, so he's doing a good job. I love what he just did, which is he asked the question. So this is actually step number 2 after using the product. So
definitely working.
what we need to do, let's mute ourselves, guys. What we need to do is we need to use the product and then we need to ask questions. Here's what most people do. Most people read this and they start answering the question immediately. That's a big do not, right? Don't start answering immediately. So this question, believe it or not, is actually a little beefy. Most of the data modeling questions you're going to get are going to be very ambiguous on purpose. It might just be this. Imagine getting this question, right? That could be pretty ambiguous. So the first thing you got to do, I kid you not, is use Spotify every day for 10 days leading up to your interview. Because once you start to do that, you start to get a good idea of how the business works, how the data flows, etc. So that's step number 0, I call it, because you got to do that prior to the interview. And then the first step, ask 10 plus questions. I kid you not. When I say ask 10 questions, I mean ask 10 questions. Because when most people do, they ask either 0, 1, or 2 questions, and then they start answering without enough context. Does that make sense? So, Jose, I'm going to push you a little bit here. Not to pick on you, but I'm going to push you a little bit.
Okay, I like it.
What other questions do you have? What was the first question you had?
First question is how far in history are we going back?
Okay, what else? And by the way, guys, the interviewer is there to help you, right? So he's not going to like give you a, BS answer when you ask questions, but he's only going to answer questions that you ask. So if you don't ask, they're going to let you ramble for 30 minutes. So what else you got, Jose?
What type of user are we interested in? A new user, a long-time user?
Good.
Does that matter at all? I'm not sure.
Good. Yep. What else? And by the way, guys, this right here, which we're doing, Jose, what's your background? How many years of experience do you have?
I've been working in tech since the 80s.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell because he has that muscle in his head already. So for anybody that's on this call that has like 0 years experience, 1 year's experience, even less than 5, it's okay. What Jose is about to do is a skill, right? We've mock interviewed a lot of people. And in this part, people get lost after 1 or 2 questions. They don't know what to ask, but Jose is about to rattle off 10 questions. So go ahead, Jose.
Well, so what type of user was it? New user, experienced user, but also what type of user, like are those users listening to podcasts? Are they listening to music? Are they what else do they offer there? Podcast, music,
Sure.
Genre.
right.
Exactly.
What
Genre.
particular genre, right? And
Yep.
then
Books.
how are the recommendations
Books.
based is another question.
Yep. How are the recommendations based? Yep. Keep throwing out. If you have something, throw it out. Anybody? User demographic? Yep. Somebody DM me that. Yep.
What
Somebody
type of
DM me, am I
subscriber
always
are they?
walking while I work? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I try to walk as much as possible. Try to sit less than 60 minutes a day if you can. So the hips will thank you. Nina said catalog, inventory of songs. Yes, yes, yes.
Would
What is the
so
latency required for the recommendation system?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. So I'll tell you this, whoever said that about the latency, I love it and I don't love it at the same time. I like it because it's a good engineer question to ask. I don't love it in the context of this session because remember, in the interview for data modeling, this kind of doesn't matter, right? And I'll get to that in a little bit, but you want to answer the question with regards to the round that you're in. And a lot of times people go the opposite where they start giving too much fluff and it actually hurts them. So again, I'll go over that in a little bit, but if this is a system design round, good job. That's exactly what you want to ask. Someone said the amount of songs listened in the time span. Yep.
How soon do we refresh the recommendation? Or
Yep.
how quickly we recommend? How quickly do we refresh it?
Yep. Good, 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 good. Anything else? So
Can we say about duration of the kind of music they listen to, like in time of time?
yep, when they listen to it.
Yeah.
Yep. By the way, so let me ask you guys this. If the goal, now this will get into step 2, if the goal is to build a recommendation engine, right? What is very indicative of what someone likes? You guys listed out a few ones, right? Amount of times a song is listened to, what are they listening to, etc. Yep. Language, genre, you got that. The mood, right? Music mood is a good one. What else?
Ratings on the music.
Sort of. What else, right? And so again, this is why step number 0 is so important. If you guys opened up your Spotify right now, what do you guys see? What type of subscriber there are? Yep. The artist. Yep. What else? What else, guys? Again, this is what, and I want to emphasize this. This is why step number 0 is so important. Album, that's a good one, right? Because then you know you can recommend more things of that artist or that album.
Track.
You can see that. What's right there?
How about list of track?
Library, playlists, right? So a user is literally telling you what they like. I got country rock, hip hop, rap. I don't even know what this one is. I got one with just an emoji. But anyway, do you see how asking questions is good? Most people make the mistake of asking too little questions because it's a muscle. But if you are going to go to the other extreme, which I recommend, and you ask 10 to 20 questions, you want to make sure the questions are pinpointed towards the question here. Yeah. What are their favorites, right? What are people highlighting as their favorites? Playlists, right? Saves, right? Replays. So meaning like you get one song and you listen to it over and over again, right? So I know this sounds simple, but there's something that happens when people enter an interview where they freeze up. They freeze up and they ask 1 to 2 questions. And a lot of the times it's because they hadn't done this properly. And it's funny, everybody listens to Spotify probably every day, but you never actually like click on the button and look at what is happening, right? By the way, what's in the middle right here? What's that middle thing right there? What's that middle thing? It's search, right? Search. Hey, add search in there, right? No one thought about that. And it's the main button that they advertise, right? So keep that in mind. It is a muscle. Jose was able to do it pretty well. 90% of the time, people are going to ask too little questions. Any questions on that?
Is it possible that the interviewer might come back or might start feeling you're asking too many questions, sort of a thing?
Yes, yes. And this is exactly where I started saying like, okay, if you're asking about latency, you're kind of going off track, right? Because that question isn't really going to help you here. You know, so again, the reason I'm saying develop this muscle is because 99% of people, trust me, we have the data, we've helped over 1,000 people. 99% of people ask too little questions. They ask one or two, but they're asking zero, and then they ramble for 30 minutes. And guess what the interviewer is going to do? They're going to let you ramble. They're going to let you ramble, and next thing you know, you've wasted the entire interview. Because what they're measuring is how good you can communicate, how good you can work with the other person, right? And how good you can take feedback and hints and apply it to your answer. That's what they're measuring, right? A lot of people here are sitting and spending their time creating, like using, hey, how do I create table, blah, blah, blah. What's the code, blah, blah. That's good, but think about it. During the interview, they're not going to ask you to code. They're not going to ask you to do that. Same thing with AWS. A lot of you guys are like, I'm going to do an AWS certificate for the next year. They're not going to ask you to code. They're not going to ask you to spin up a console, right? So what you got to do is reverse engineer the interview. And so that's what I want to give you here. Any other questions? I think, Ellie, you asked do we run into risk and compliance questions? Elaborate. Do you mean like PII data? Like, are they going to ask that during the interview? Any other questions? Cool. By the way, Ellie, yeah, I mean, not really, unless the actual question is about PII data. It's about risk and compliance. So I'll leave it at that, but it's really, really rare. Okay.
Yeah, just one more thing I wanted to say.
Yep.
The question as you cut it down, it makes it so much more vague
Yep.
than
Yep.
it was before. So I don't think that, I think they're inviting questions.
Yep. 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 And this is what I'm saying. And by the way, if any of you have ever, like, we got a SQL portal on here. It's entirely free, by the way. So if you're new, highly recommend you do it. Like, you go into time dimension with the granularity level. I'll get to that one. That one's an interesting one. You know, if you want to do some SQL tutorial stuff, it's free. But what a lot of people don't understand is they're making it vague on purpose, right? Even in a SQL question, I'll make this a little bigger. Find the number of users invited to meetings on 3 consecutive days. Oftentimes, they won't even give you that. They're doing that on purpose because what they want to see is what kind of questions you're going to ask. I use this analogy all the time. It's like, if you think about it, they're trying to hire you for being analytical and an engineer, right? So what they want to see is that you're analytical and a good engineer, right? But they're not going to ask you, hey, are you analytical? They're not going to do that, right? That's like me going up to a girl at a bar and being like, hey, like, trust me, I'm good looking, you know, like I would never do that. I would just talk to them and it would come across, right? So that's the thing you have to keep in mind here. You can't go into an interview and be like, no, trust me, like I'm analytical. And I see that a lot, by the way, not to get, you know, politically correct. It's a little bit of a cultural thing. And so just be careful. You want to come across analytical by asking a lot of questions, not just telling them you're analytical. So I'll leave it at that. Any other questions? So Ellie brings up something interesting. She's saying, during my experience, there's a lot of movement constraints regarding compliance. Let me say this. And again, I don't mean to pick on Ellie, but I think it's important. Guys, do not bring your past experience into this interview round. So Ellie, and again, I'm going to make an assumption, so apologies if I'm wrong. She might be working for a smaller company and she might be dealing with close sensitive data, maybe healthcare, whatever, that has a lot of compliance. The problem is, if you bring in your past experience, into this interview round, you are going to go off the wrong path. And guess what happens if you go off the wrong path? They will let you. So I'm not saying disregard your entire experience. I'm just saying use your experience selectively, because your bias can really affect the questions you ask, how you answer these, the next steps I'm about to go through, right? The next framework. So be very, very careful. Again, if you used to work at Uber and you're applying for Lyft, yeah, use your experience. Make sense? Someone is asking me about the program. I mean, talk to your salesperson on that question. That's a very personal question, so I don't want to throw it out here, but we have payment plans. It's the best we can do. So yeah, just talk to the rep there. Okay. Step number 3. Any final questions, by the way? Anything else you want to throw out there, Jose?
I'm good at this time.
Okay. Again, this is why step number 0 is so important. It's so important. Someone said, which songs are users marked as not recommended? Yes, I was just about to say that one. Yes, good job. Someone said, so asking these questions, which seems like requirement gathering before starting the project. Yeah, Deepak. Deepak said it perfectly. It's called requirement gathering. And guess what? That's how you would do a real project in the real world, right? Like imagine if your manager came up to you and said, hey, can you build a recommendation engine? And then you're like, yep, I got it. And then you didn't talk to your manager for 4 months, just went out and built something. Don't be like, what the hell did you build? Right? So that's what they're trying to assess in this 30-minute span, is how can you show in a very short amount of time that you can do what you would need to do in a 4-month span on the actual job. Average time of listening in a focused playlist. Yep. Now you're combining them. These are good. Again, step number 0. What's one thing you actually do in the real world? I bet you in the last month, most of you, maybe in the last 2 months, most of you have sent a song to your friend, right? I got one friend that sent me a Spanish song this morning, you know? So 6 songs, right? So again, we've done a good job of asking a lot of questions. I will reiterate one more time. I'm glad we did this, but keep in mind we have 40 people on here. So, you know, the question is, you got to be brutal with yourself. Do I have the capability of doing this all by myself? And I'm telling you, this step 0 is what's going to help you do this step 1. Use the product intensely for 10 days prior to the interview. Okay.
Chris, I have a question here.
Go for it.
So in this case, the product is like very simple. Like it's a Spotify, so we're able to open that, our mobile and see everything.
Great
So
question.
what if our product is something, for example,
Yep.
like a finance, revenue, capital, profit or loss? In that case, you should know the business knowledge, right? Or how do we approach?
Great question. It's one we get a lot. So 3 things. Do your research on the company. Do your research on proxies. And so what I mean by that is if you have to do, Citadel, right? Citadel is a hedge fund. Let's just say you got a very small hedge fund and you're like, I can't find that much, stuff on this company, but I know what they do. So let me just go to a separate company like Citadel, which has a lot of information, and you can use your research, use the proxy to assess how this other business works. And by the way, now you have a tool that is amazing. ChatGPT. I mean, the best one is mentors, like live mentors. If you have friends, colleagues, somebody you know at the company that can tell you a little about that, right? But I know this one's a little bit hard to find. ChatGPT, it's pretty good. By the way, if you haven't already, ChatGPT has a voice feature. Download the app. There's a voice feature here, and it is amazing. Way better than Siri. Whenever I do something serious, Siri understands me like 10% of the time. ChatGPT understands like every word. I talked to ChatGPT the other day for 15 minutes. I kid you not. Every time I'm with my girlfriend and I use ChatGPT, she's like, "You're talking to her like ChatGPT more than you're talking to me," and I'm like, ChatGPT understands. Kidding, but use ChatGPT. I'm telling you, you can have a full-on conversation, and you don't actually have to sit there and write. You can go on a walk and have a whole combo and get pretty good responses. So it's a great question because, yeah, exactly, Nina, exactly. Because it's a pretty good resource because, yeah, you're right. Like, not every interview you're going to get is going to be Spotify or DoorDash or something you can use. But for the most part, you'd be surprised. Most companies have an app. If they don't have an app, they have a website and a ton of research. And if they don't have that, these two are your next best guess. Make sense?
Okay, yeah. Got it.
Cool. Any other questions? Yeah. Cool. Step number 3. This is important. I call this the 6-word advice. So, Jose, I'm gonna pick on you a little more.
Okay.
Do you know what the step number 3 is by any chance?
I don't remember seeing that one, but I'll try it.
Yeah, if you look in the school community, there's a bunch of recordings there, but this is one that is still pretty important. I call it, what's the goal? Define the metric. So here's the thing. Even though we've asked and gotten context, right? I can tell you, hey, we're looking for new users. We're going back a year of data, only in the US, right? And they've done all these things. They've saved music, they've searched music, they've done replays, they've sent it, whatever, right? So now the goal is, or the framework, again, I'm giving you frameworks. The framework is, ask yourself, what is the goal? What's the goal here? Because even though, and again, I'm gonna, not to pick on the guy that said latency, let's say the guy asked, hey, what's the latency? And I'm like, you know what, we got to do it in real time. Step number 4, framework number 4, is going to be create the tables. Create the tables, the facts and the dims. We don't have enough time to go over the facts and the dims, but I think most of you know it. If not, you'll learn it. It's pretty simple. When you create the tables, you have the potential to go off the wrong path because you might start answering it based on latency. When's the refresh date? How fast, right? And now you start answering and creating tables that have all the wrong data. So one thing you want to do right before creating the tables is ask yourself, what exactly are we about to create? Because again, we know it's a recommendation engine, but what's the goal? How do we know we built something successful, right? Think about that. How do we know we built something successful? I'll give you guys another example. If I said to you, hey, increase the Facebook engagement, just go ahead and put it in the chat. If I said increase Facebook engagement, what would you guys say? How would we do that? Right, increase engagement on Facebook. And I know I'm jumping around from Spotify to Facebook, but I'm sure you guys know Facebook. Yeah, so, yeah, one person said, post it. They DM me posting on Facebook. But is that the only way of engaging, right? What about searching? What about liking posts? What about putting up pictures? What about joining groups? What about friend requesting people? So you see what I'm saying? It's like, we have all this data now, which is good, but now get clarity as to what the goal is. And again, friendly reminder, if you joined this call because you spoke to one of my colleagues already and just want a clarification on the program or anything, put it in the chat. We're almost running out of timer, so I want to answer those questions as well. But the question there then is, what is the right metric? What is the goal? So that you can then go and create the tables. So Jose, do you have a goal or a metric in mind for this question here? Someone said, while preparing the skills, how do you measure the benchmark of candidates based on your industry experience, based on desirable? Yeah, so Deepak is asking the question, like when you join the program, how do we know where they are? So our program, we try to do it personalized, right? We're not doing a 6-week thing or 6-month thing or a curriculum even. That's why we don't really have curriculums, because what we do is we look at your we look at your resume, we look at where you're trying to go, and we give you a plan, personalized plan based on where you are. And then we give you all the support, one-on-one, the group calls, the material, all that stuff, right? So Deepak, to answer your question, we have an onboarding call where we will assess it. We'll ask you questions, we'll look at your resume, and then what we'll do is we'll have sessions and mini mock interviews to assess, okay, you know, this person who said they were a 10 out of 10 SQL is actually, you know, a 7 out of 10. So we're going to do all the above. There's no like one secret way. You know, I'm not going to send you a Google sheet and be like, hey, fill this out, and then that's it. It's not that simple, right? We got to do a bunch of things. Talk to you, look at your resume, ask questions, do mock interviews, etc. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Nina said, Chris, in addition to the specific question asked in the interview, should we also be thinking beyond it or just stick to the exact assignment? Great question. That's the bonus framework. So I'll get to that in a bit. Let me write this down so I don't forget. That is a great question, Nina. I call that the bonus framework. It's called looping. So I'll go over that in a bit. Pratik said, one goal I can think of is recommend at least 15 new songs every week to a user. Pratik, you're killing it, man. The reason I really like this actually is because he quantified it multiple times. 15 songs every week per user. So I'll go over that in a bit. I really like that he quantified this. So good stuff there. Jay-Z said, do we need to pay for the evaluation part? No, I'm actually not sure what you mean there. Oh, you mean like to see what your skills are? No, just talk to one of my people. They'll basically do that for you. Free consultation there. I can, it's either a 30-minute call or a 1-hour call, depending on how serious you are. So I can send you a little link there in a bit. Someone said metric can be how many times has a user listened to a song? The user listened to one song from the recommender list. How many times? Sort of. So again, let me clarify this. What's the goal? To find a metric for how we know if our recommendation engine was good, right? Because again, here's the date. Let me fast forward a little bit. The danger of step number 4 is that you have unlimited amount of tables that you can create. You have unlimited amount of tables. You have unlimited amount of rows, right? The problem with that goes back to this. You can ramble off into the distance and not give the interviewer what they're looking for. By the way, when the interviewer says, oh, there's no wrong or right answers, that's BS. That's BS. They have a grading template. They have a criteria. They're looking for something. Again, there might be multiple answers, but they're kind of looking for something. And again, they're looking to see if you're analytical. So knowing this, how do we know if the recommendation engine was good? What's the metric? I want you to think like a data scientist for a second. Because by the way, to be a good data engineer, you need to know how to talk to data analysts, data scientists, in the future, ML and AI, right? Or now I should say, because as the data engineer, you're building the architecture for all these roles up here, right? It's like if I was building a house, I'm the guy building the foundation, the wires, the pipes, so that everybody else can do their thing on top of it. So you got to be able to learn and understand how they're thinking. So any final guesses here before I continue? Cool. By the way, somebody asked me, yeah, let me send 1 second.
Can I just say something that's missing to me?
Yes.
I actually worked on chat GBT with something like this, similar to what you were describing, just having a conversation. And I thought it was more helpful, and we would actually see the goal brighter, you know, in the distance by actually getting answers to the questions that we had.
Yeah,
We didn't cover exactly. I mean, music mood.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's good.
the interviewer is not interested in that being part of the recommendation.
Yeah, it's a good one. So that's why I kind of basically said, latency doesn't matter.
Right.
Again, the thing I will say, I think I answered this before. This was good. Assume it's a new user. Everything else, yes, you have access to all this data. You have access to the genre they're listening to. You have access to a year of data. You have access to, when they listen to it. Assume you have all of that. But knowing that I give you this, right? What's a metric that you can create to see if this is effective? By the way, whoever said 15 songs, this is really, really good. And I like this, but this is what I call an input metric. So what I mean by that is our system, the data scientists that you work with, they're going to recommend 15 songs to you, right? If I open up my Spotify right now, I'm going to get a bunch of recommendations. That's great. How do you know if it worked? Right? What's the metric that tells you it worked? And by the way, in this case, there really is no wrong answer because there could be 10 metrics that we measure to make sure it works. So someone said metric of success, user retention increased on platform. Okay, that's a good one. Anything else? This is a good one. Someone said, how many recommended songs the user actually downloaded? Someone said, what's your success rate after completing the program and what time frame? For those that completed, typically in less than 6 months. We've had instances of people going 9 to 12 months. Those are more for beginner people. It's going to be a little harder for them, but it really, really, really varies. We've had people get a job in 2 to 3 weeks. We've had people get a job in a year. Stuff like whether you're on a visa or not does probably make it, you're probably going to take a little longer to get a role. Full honesty there. So just keep that in mind. Salua, I think, asked that question. Yep, exactly. Someone said this perfectly to go with this. How many songs from recommended list added into favorites or playlist? So let's go with this one. I like this one. There's one change I would make here. Does anybody know? This is what I call a mini framework that I like. Is the user creating the playlist? That's a good one too. So here's the mini framework that I like, and I'm going to attach it to this one right here. It's not how many songs, it's what percent of songs were added. And when I say were added, let's just say, to faves or playlist or likes or whatever, right? Or sent to a friend, right? The reason I'm saying percent, and again, do you see how like hyper focused? I'm doing this on purpose. I know it sounds annoying. This thing right here versus saying this can be the difference between them giving you a 10 out of 10 and you move on to the next round, or an 8 out of 10. And now they have to go look at your other rounds to be like, is he actually, do they actually know what they're doing? The reason this is so important is because think about it. If I recommend 10 songs to you in one day and you add one song, that's 10%. But if I make 100 recommendations and now you add 3 songs, it's like, yay, we tripled your amount of songs added. But the percentage of songs that you added is less, right? It went from 10% to 3%. So it tells you that the recommendation engine isn't actually as good as you thought. So that's why I love, like for metrics, I love doing them based on percentages, right? Based on percentages. So just keep that in mind, okay? So let's move on to step number 4. Now that we know, by the way, like I said up here, right? Define the metric. What's the goal? So if the goal is to get people, this could be the goal. The goal is to get people to add songs to their faves or playlist or send to a friend. Let's just say that the research shows, right? Research shows that if the songs get added to one of these, then if added, the listening rate or the amount of listens, whatever you want to call it, goes up exponentially, which by the way, it's true. If you think about it, most songs you probably listen to on Spotify, you're just opening up one of your playlists, right? Why? Because it's easier. You don't have to like listen to 10 new songs. It's safer. You can just go one of your playlists. If you go to the gym, you have a gym playlist, right? So you see how I'm being precise. What's the goal? Okay, I know the goal is this. Get people to add it to their playlist, right? What's the metric? The percent of songs that were added from the recommendations. Do you see how I'm getting so precise? I'm surgical, like a doctor. And again, this is all a conversation. I know we're spending a lot of time on this. This is all a conversation that needs to happen with the interviewer in about like a couple minutes. It's like, okay. And by the way, you can just ask them for feedback, right? Everything. You just be like, hey, so I want this to be our North Star. Is that okay? Do you have anything else before I create the tables, right? You're kind of giving yourself a little bit of a buffer and being like, before I go into it, is that okay? Is this okay? Set targets on metrics. Yeah, Nina, that's one too. You can say, hey, if right now, if our recommendation engine is adding 1% of songs, maybe we want to go 5%. Yeah, so that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, so step number 4. Jose, you got anything for steps number 3 or 4?
Not really.
Cool. Pratik, anything on your side? Make sense? Cool. So step number 4, create the tables, create the facts, create the dims. This is pretty simple. Again, let me do this. Does anybody have a definition of a fact table? Like a one-liner. Does anyone have it? You can unmute yourself. You can put it in the chat, whatever the case is. Does anyone have anything?
Transactions made by the items in the dim table.
That's good. I think Deepak said, measure the metrics by the dim table. This is good. It's like log of activity. Good. Just writing down what people are saying here. So, okay, this is good. So I like it. Let me give you the precise definition. It's pretty simple, but I see most people, someone said, can you scroll down? Yep. I see most people, let me know if you're good, Ellie. I see most people, like no one really talks about this, but values that could be aggregated. Yep, good job, Juan. So the way a fact table is a transaction table, that's OLTP. Yes, it is that, but it's not only that. So be careful about that definition. And this is why I want to get precise. Okay, here's a definition of a fact table and a dim table. A dim table is an object. Okay, it's an entity, an object or an entity. By the way, Facebook was famous for basically creating data models. They had it, a long time ago, basically when tech was invented, but Facebook really, really is the master of this. Dim table is an object or an entity. The fact table describes the actions of said object. Okay, so I'll give you an example. What are the objects? Put your answers in the chat. What are the objects in the data modeling of DoorDash? What are the objects associated with that? Does anyone know? What are the entities? What are the objects? What are the people? What are the subjects, right? Who's got something? Take your best.
Talk about the location.
Someone said users, someone said locations. Someone said customers, products, businesses. Exactly. So DoorDash is famous for having, I don't want to say the most complex data model because there's some crazy stuff coming out nowadays, but traditionally DoorDash is a lot more complicated than, if I go to Walmart and buy something, we have the Walmart store and the user. Again, I can go more in depth because we also have the seller of the product and et cetera, the warehouse, the supply chain, the shipper, blah, blah, blah. But for this case, DoorDash is pretty complicated because it has the user, the restaurant or the business, and it has the driver. So it kind of has 3 things at play. When you order something, there's 3 entities interacting with one another. Let's leave the supply chain because I get it. There's also the food that comes into the businesses and there's a lot of stuff to track. But these are the entities. And so if these are the entities, then with the fact tables, you measure the entities, right? So on this one, yep, exactly. Pratik's got it. Yep, exactly. You got rider tracking, right? You want to do a fact table that says, maybe that's called, fact daily, or let's call that fact daily driver. Let's call it driver, or delivery guy, whatever, right? You have order tracking, right? So that's could be fact daily ordering, right? By the way, how you actually name the tables really matter. So, right, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have restaurant tracking, right? So you could say, fact daily orders from the restaurant, fact daily, user purchases, we can call this, whatever, right? So you guys get my point. So now we have fact tables that are connected to the objects, to the dim tables, and then the dim tables describe things to that object. So if we have the user here, the user, let's call this dim user or dim purchaser, right? Because a user could be a driver, a user could be a restaurant, right? Dim user purchaser, whatever. Then we have things like, user ID, city, right? Or it could be city ID, date joined, whatever, right? So that's a little important for you to kind of understand. It's like we have dim tables, fact tables, know the definitions, because I think people get confused. So step number 4 is create the tables. So I'm going to highlight this so you guys get confused. This is something else. And we can just make this that. So if we were to create the table for this, does anyone want to take a stab at it? It's okay if you don't. I know we'll run out of time here, so I can just do this. But if we know that we're going to build a recommendation engine and we want to track people adding songs from that recommendation, well, we're going to need a fact daily listens, right? We're going to need a dim users, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So here's what I recommend you do. I recommend you list out the table first, the table names, sorry, list out the table names, then the columns. And by the way, if you have any recommendations, just put it in the chat and we'll go from there. The fact daily listens, it can literally be user ID, they listen, right? It could be, what's it called? Song ID, right? And now this all of a sudden tells you, oh, wait a second, we need to create a dim song table, right? Because we need to connect the song ID to that, because then here, when we have the song ID here, we can do genre, we can do date published, right? So now do you see how we are getting the attributes of the entity? The entity is the song, or honestly, the entity here is probably the artist, right? Because that's the person. We can connect that to that, whatever the case is, right? Playlist ID, exactly. Start with fact tables, followed by dims, exactly. So we know it's going to be daily. By the way, what's a very famous fact table that's not just listens? I gave you a hint earlier. Does anybody know it? Fact daily recommendation. That's a good one. Yep, exactly. Because we know that if that's the goal, we need to actually track whether our recommendations are getting added. So again, it could be recommended to user ID, the date of the recommendation, right? The actual song. And then we can have a Boolean flag that says, was added, right? Or whatever, right? They recommended, time recommended, whatever, right? So fact daily downloads, that's a good one. I'm looking for something else. What do people do more than download? Remember, you open up Spotify. What's the main button they have you?
Search.
Search, there we go. Because again, we want to track if the search is going up. Now again, I kind of tricked you guys into that one because again, I know that this is the main thing we want to do. But yes, so whoever said downloads, That's the main thing we want to track. So, and then you create dim users, dim song, dim artists, whatever the case is. So, any questions there before I continue? Cool. So, we have the goal. We have our original question. Okay. Somebody asked this. I think Nina is still on the call. Somebody asked this earlier, and it was a great question. Let's see. And I'm going to call this the bonus framework. And basically, it's called looping. And again, I know everybody stresses about these steps. This is easy, right? Once you've done steps number 1, 2, 3, creating the tables, like listing this out here is easy. All you guys are, don't practice doing create table and all the code. You're not gonna have to code in the real world. Practice doing this and understanding what are the right tables. The thing you want to do before you say, hey, I'm done, is you want to do something called looping. Meaning, take a look at what you created, continue to talk to your interviewer, and assess whether, is what I created answering this question? And is it answering this question? There's a really famous story. This is kind of a tangent. I know this is how my brain operates, but there's a really famous story from Facebook that was like, if for new users, if we get 10 friends for that new user in the first 7 days, they're a customer for life. Because if you think about Facebook, like if you log into Facebook for the first time 20 years ago and like you don't know anyone there, you may never go in there again, right? So once they found that metric, again, what's the metric? Once they found that metric, that North Star, they put all of their resources to increase the percentage of users that got 10 friends in the first 7 days. And it might be similar here. It might be like, hey, for new users, going back to your question, Jose, this is why I said yes. For new users, this could be a side metric, by the way. You don't have to delete this one here. But for new users, do they, create at least 2 playlists in the first 10 days? Whatever. It could be this metric, it could be that metric. This is where you kind of have a little bit of wiggle room. But if you do this, and if you do this, you got to ask yourself, is what I created here going to answer that question? So loop one time and just make sure that you answered it properly. Because here's the thing. Again, not to pick on the guy that said latency, but if you went and you created, if 70% of your tables are about latency, you can probably rest assured you're not going to pass that round. So be very, very careful here. So again, step 0, 1, and 3, 1, 2, 3 are, I guess I got to do that, are to make sure that you don't make that mistake. What most people do is they get a question, right? They get a question, they create a table. If you find yourself creating tables in the first 5 minutes, stop. And I know, by the way, I had a mentor tell me this once. He was like, if you want somebody to remember something, tell them 9 times. Most people laugh at me when I say that, but it makes sense, right? How many, trust me, I have almost 100 employees. I'll tell them something and they won't do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I can't get mad at them because it hasn't gone into the subconscious, right? You want to really iterate. So if you guys are getting annoyed, if you guys aren't annoyed yet, that I've been saying the same thing for an hour, that means I have to say more. But if you guys are starting to get annoyed, it's good. It's getting into your subconscious. Because again, if you do it in the first 5 minutes, you start creating a table, stop. Because chances are, when you do loop back to the original question, you're going to realize, oh, I didn't actually answer the question. Does that make sense? Yeah, Pratik said, can we get access to the Google Doc? Yep, I got you, buddy. I'll send it out to the email list. I'll send out the recording too for anyone that's missed it. But what questions do you guys have? I know we're running out of time, so throw out some more questions. Who feels better about passing the data modeling interview? Put a 1. Put a thumbs up. Good. Good, good, good. Exactly. See your goal, know what it is. And a lot of it is going to come from the prep work you do. Even just using, it's called dog fooding, by the way. If any of you ever start a business, it's called dog fooding because when you build a product, you want to use it yourself so that you experience what your customers are experiencing. So, you know, if you want to think about it that way, what you want to do is do dog fooding. Yeah, you're welcome, Nina. Absolutely. You're welcome, Rising. Someone asked, what kind of companies do you guys place? We're not a placement agency. I want to make that clear. A lot of people are like, hey, can you do this for free? Most recruiters are doing it. We're not a recruiting company. We're not a placement company. We're an education company that will help you and do what we can to help you land a role. We'll apply for you. We'll connect you with our recruiters. We'll connect you with our company partnerships. We'll do everything. And so we know a lot of the big tech companies, a little harder with smaller companies, but we don't place. I just want to make that clear. We don't take a cut for placing or whatever the case is, right? So we'll scale your applications and do all that good stuff. But you're welcome, Nina. Somebody asked, if somebody has knowledge in one business domain, should they focus on the same industry? You don't have to. It depends if you like it. You know, we've had people that were in healthcare move over to big tech. We've had people in big tech move over to startups, right? So it depends on what you want. Here's what I'll say. The base knowledge, SQL, Python, data modeling, AWS, maybe AI or ML, if that's you, right? Those could be applicable to any industry. So you don't have to stick to the same industry if you don't want to. Now, will you have a better chance of getting a job if you were in the same industry? Of course, right? If you know, if I worked in Amazon 10 years ago and I wanted to apply to Chewy, whoops, and I wanted to apply to Chewy, yeah, I'm probably going to get more of a look than someone that was working in the finance industry, right? Because Chewy's going to look at me and be like, oh, they're dealing with e-commerce. They're dealing with stores online. I can help Chewy. So the percentage that I get an interview definitely goes up. Does that mean I have to only apply to e-commerce businesses? No, not at all, right? You know, in a way, Lyft had nothing to do with Amazon. In a way, it does, because it has data and is dealing with online transactions. So, you know, it really depends what you want. So I'll go for that. Are schools? Someone asked, are schools a good place to get certificate for jobs? Are W3 schools? W3 schools. Expand that a little more. Expand that question a little more. What other questions do you guys have? Yep, no worries. If you have a hard stop, you can drop off. I'll stay in here a little more, try to give a little more free value. By the way, you can ask questions on anything. It just doesn't have to be just data modeling. You know, W3 schools basically take the data analytics course. I mean, if you're talking about like a specific school or person, I don't know. I don't really spend my time researching others. To be honest, I'm trying to focus on my customer, but if you like them, great. Otherwise, I mean, we have a, you know, I'm biased. We have a free SQL tutorial online that you can just go and do as well. I think everybody's different. I think some people should go to college. I think some people should go to a master's degree in person. I think some people can do self-paced. Some people do part-time. Some people do full-time. Some people would do, you know, are in a hurry. Like I'm impatient. I want something where it's like I can get it done in like 2 to 3 months. Somebody is like, hey, I'm okay with doing it and taking a year. Depends on your situation. Some people are unemployed. Some people are employed. Some people have 5 years of experience in tech. Some people have 0. Some people have 1. Some people don't even want a pay raise. They just want to learn. Some people want to do it to get the pay raise, right? So everybody's different. A little hard to answer for that. Explain the micro credentials, Nina.
So what that means is that it's not essentially a certificate or a degree. It's a something that LinkedIn offers, you know, a micro credential.
Oh, got it. Like per subject.
Exactly.
We can. I'll tell you this, like Certificates, we haven't really seen it make a big difference for resumes. So when people start to apply, recruiters don't really care about certificates or even click on GitHub links, to be honest. Oftentimes they're looking for the keywords to match on the resume, so you want it to be on the paper. It's something we can develop over time if that's something that a lot of clients are asking for. We do have a certificate for the entire program, but not for micro credentials. But if my team and I can spin it up quickly, we'll get it done.
All right, great, thanks.
Someone said, if we start the program, it's valid for how long? And do you provide a certificate? Yes, the certificate in 1 year, whoever PM is. Someone asked, if I'm an independent consultant, how can I help if I'm fundless now? Prefer C2C jobs? Yeah, contractors fine. There's Upwork, there's Fiverr, we can apply for those. If I'm fundless, meaning like you don't have the funds to invest in yourself, again, just talk to your person. I'll put the link again. I think I put it before. If you already spoke to someone, just hit them up. If you haven't spoken to anybody, click on the link. Quick 15-minute session. Let's just see what your specific situation is. Again, we're live streaming, so I don't want to like put you on blast either. But does it matter where you get your certifications for these systems? No. Again, I don't think certifications really make a difference. Again, I'm biased. You can think I'm lying. I don't really care. We have the data and we see that it just doesn't matter. Now, am I saying don't do it or don't learn? That's not what I'm saying either. But is it gonna be like, oh, I have this certification, give me a job? Not quite either, right? So
Did you respond to my question yet?
put it in the chat. Are remote jobs available? Someone asked, are remote jobs available?
No, I'm talking about the one for independent consultants. I'm like very experienced in tech. How do you guys help somebody that have 19 plus years of experience?
Yeah, it depends what you know. Do you know AWS, for example?
Yeah, AWS, Azure, data analysis, Python,
System design, data modeling.
working on AI stuff now.
So my recommendation is to hop on the 15-minute call and have your specific situation. If you're saying that you already know all this stuff, by the way, we are coming out with more coursework, might be of interest to you, AI, ML, DS, so be on the lookout. But if it's something specifically for you, you're like, oh, I already know all the content, and I only want you guys to like apply for me, for example, we can do that as well. So my recommendation is get on the 15-minute call. Let's see how we can help, and let's have a more in-depth convo for there. Someone asked an interesting question. They said, I'm here since August working on SQL and data modeling. Am I taking too long? Well, it depends, man. Do an honest assessment, right? Like, how much work have you put in? Right? Like, if you genuinely have to answer, and again, you don't have to answer it in front of everybody, but like, how many hours of work have you put in per week since August? Like, let's be honest with ourselves, right? That's kind of like me saying, hey, I don't have a six-pack yet. Am I taking too long? My personal trainer, it's like, well, it's probably taking long if I'm eating like crap, right? So Deepak said, are remote jobs available? Here's a stat that I really like. Before COVID, 5% of jobs were remote. I think after COVID, it's like now it's 30%. Obviously after COVID, it was like 100%. So it's gone back down since after COVID, but it's still more than what it was in 2019, 2020. Do I have a crystal ball of what it's going to look like? No, right? All the big companies have always been saying we're going to go back to office, and none of them really do full time. Some of them are hybrid now. I think Amazon might be full time now. So in the long run, the trend seems to be more and more remote work. But no, I'm not a genius. I can't tell you for certain what's going to happen. But again, for you, Deepak, if you have the years of experience that you're saying, just apply to jobs that are remote, right? Like, you don't have to take it. That's the beautiful thing. Like, don't be neurotic. Don't have neurotic concerns, because you can just not take a job if it's not what you're looking for, especially if you're already employed. By the way, I'll tell you this. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see. Yeah, no, man. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see. People wait to upskill or look for their next job after they're laid off. I see that a lot. Just because you upskill doesn't mean you have to leave your job in 3 months. So yeah, don't try to find the perfect moment. It doesn't exist, because once you get laid off, then you're in a hurry. So just keep that in mind. Cool. What other questions? Someone said, when applying a job, should we include only tech information? Not necessarily. It depends. If your previous role is, something to do with the role that you're applying to, put it in there, right? I'll tell you this. I'll give you guys this framework that I really like. Hopefully it helps all you guys. Avoid extremes, right? So it's like, when I hear that question, it's like, hey, do you want your arm or a leg? It's like, well, you kind of want a little bit of both, right? It means that you don't have to choose one or the other. You can find a mix and a match, right? So for you, Keisha, maybe put in all the tech stuff you're learning, maybe get a, contractor job. And exactly, you can add your data analytics and maybe keep your retail and CSRs. Maybe you can morph it into a data analytics frame as well, right? So you can mix and match is what I'm saying. You don't have to like get rid of your entire history. And again, it's hard for me to give you that answer because, like, for example, let's say you were a manager at a retail store. You might have nothing to do with data, but you might have great communication skills and people skills. Which, by the way, 90% of engineers, no offense, are not great communicators, right? So that might be a plus. That might be an advantage for you. So again, it's hard for me to give you specific advice, but the framework, again, you can see here, I like giving frameworks. I'm not a fan of like giving like, yeah, you should definitely do this. I like giving like mental frameworks. The mental framework I would say here is, you want your arm or your leg? You probably want both. So avoid going extreme on one direction. Yeah, no worries. Absolutely. You're welcome. Okay, anything else, guys?
One quick question again, about funding. Okay, if you currently not working and you have a situation, you believe this is a good fit for you, but you need to, especially the applying for positioning you with the right clients to do your projects.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, listen, if you don't have the funds, like I'm not trying to take anybody's last dollar either. Like if you don't have the funds, it's okay. Put yourself in the right situation, make sure your family's good. We've had people that have Uber drive to do this and they're okay with it. If you're not, that's okay. That's your choice too. It really depends on your specific situation. Again, I would talk to my team. It's free. It's 15 minutes. Figure out your specific situation, right? And then just go from there. And if it's not the right time, it's not the right time, and that's okay as well. But again, it's for the most part, we're really trying to work with people that are ready to learn, ready to self-develop and all that stuff. So book a call and see how we can help there, okay? The PM, I mean, no. Again, it's typically a partnership, right? We're not gonna, when we start to apply for you, we're not gonna just apply to jobs that you don't want or jobs that are like half your salary, right? We're just not gonna do that. Otherwise, you could just, leave us a bad review, right? So we're not gonna do that. He's asking, are we gonna include the salary range in the contract? No, because again, there's not enough things that we can control. There's not enough things that you can control, but the whole point is that we're going to work as a partnership and get you to where you want to go, as quickly as possible. Yep, no worries, my friend. What other questions? Throw them at me. What are some trouble? Let me ask you guys some questions. What are some troubles you guys are facing in your journey? It could be data modeling related. It could be anything related. Let me title this data modeling. That way we can turn it into a PDF.
I've not been able to locate the job I want for over a year. Not
How many
because I
jobs
don't
have you
have
applied
this.
to?
AWS engineer, business intelligence job, BI jobs, data analytics.
How many jobs?
How many have I applied?
Yes.
I can't count. I don't remember, but at the minimum 100. Because
100 in a year?
I say at the minimum, because I get emails like daily, and I respond to the ones that matches my job skills. So it's just the mostly with recruiters.
Yeah.
Sometimes
So
I get talk back and they call you back, you discuss, you do a screening interview, they say, okay, we
yeah.
schedule
So
call and you don't get
so
it.
Godson, let me tell you this. This is not 2002. You're not going to apply to 100 jobs and expect 10 interviews. It's just not. You got to put some volume in. So if you're telling me you have 20 years of experience, which you've been saying in the chat, go to apply to more jobs. Go reach out to your recruiters. Go to reach out to your friends. Get your friends to reach out to their friends. It's called 60 degrees of freedom. You can get to Donald Trump because you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, and 6 degrees out, you can get to Donald Trump or anybody in the world. So I'm telling you right now, if you are as experienced as you're saying, right? If, big if.
Yes, I
I don't
am.
know. Go apply to 1,000 jobs this month. This month. 100 in 1 year, that's not enough, man. That's not enough. Again, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but yeah, that's not enough. Trust me, we have the data. It's not 2002 anymore. Someone
Okay.
said, how does your program fit for the visa dependent people? Yeah, book a call. Again, I'll put the link. Book a call because that stuff is so case dependent. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you wrote it out perfectly. There's OPT, STEM OPT, H1, H4. You know, there's different tiers and different programs that we can offer to people like that. But again, it really is a case by case basis, which I like having calls instead of just like, oh, here's this thing on the website. It's like, everyone's so unique. So that's the best way to figure that out. Jose, you wrote, you wrote advanced SQL questions still break me. Are you in the program, Jose? Yeah, you are. Hit up your coach. Hit up your coach. Show up to one of the group calls. I'll tell you this, Jose, with advanced SQL questions. If you haven't looked at that video in our program that says, break up the question, look at that one. I think that one might help you because as you get more and more advanced down the SQL rabbit hole, what you really, really want to do is break it up into pieces. And again, kind of like we were talking about today, the key there is to understand what the question is, ask questions so you get more clarity. And then once you start to approach and write your questions, loop back to figure out if you actually did it the right way. So again, if you have to hit up your Slack channel, do that, and our coaches can help you there. But there's a good video called Breaking Up the Question that I think really, really would help you. Franthy, making a career switch from data visualization to DE. How's the program going to make sure it's seamless, especially in today's world where every recruiter employer can look up your LinkedIn profile? So there's a few questions there. Let's Godsend, let's meet ourselves, buddy. So there's a few questions in there. I'll answer that. So how can we make sure that data visualization to DE actually happens? Well, that was pretty straightforward, man. Again, we look at what you know, we look at where you want to go, we create a personalized roadmap, and we give you the people, the resources, the Slack channels, the group calls, the one-on-ones, everything for you to get there. So hopefully that makes sense. And then you mentioned something interesting, which was like recruiters looking up your LinkedIn profiles. If I were to assume your question, which is a bad thing, but if you want to give me more clarity, put it in the chat. If I had to assume your question, yep, goodbye, yep, thank you as well. What you are asking there is, hey, will they actually let you be a DE if you don't have a DE background? So there's a couple ways around it, right? Just because you have a data visualization title doesn't mean you can't say you've done some DE projects, you do some project with us, put it in there. Or what's even better, go talk to your manager right now and ask them to start putting you in data analyst and data engineer projects, right? And then you can kind of start to morph it. But I'll tell you this, LinkedIn, I don't want to say LinkedIn's a little overrated, but recruiters aren't necessarily looking you up as much as you think. Now, if you make it to the final round, yes, they will. But again, if you interview well, they'll be like, oh, well, Crampy can, kind of do it anyways. So, Yes, will they know what you've been doing in the previous years? Yeah, but again, there's kind of ways around it. You can do a side gig, you can do an Upwork, you use Fiverr, you can do personal projects, right? So there's no right answer. Um, again, I would say avoid extremes. I would say avoid extremes. I think if you put on your resume, hey, I have 5 years of experience as a data engineer at Amazon, and you haven't done any of that, they're going to reject you. But I know people, I know clients even who are like, hey, I don't want to change my resume at all. And I'm like, well, you've learned all this stuff. This stuff is great. And your resume says that you were serving tables for the last year. Again, no disrespect to people, to waiters serving tables, right? No disrespect there. All I'm saying is you joined this program, you learn all this stuff. Maybe let's adjust your resume a little bit, right? And we've had clients that be like, no, I don't want to lie. And we're like, it's not lying if you just put a project section in your resume, right? So again, what I'm saying is find the balance in the middle and you should be fine. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Don't make me pick on people, by the way.
Yeah, before I drop, sorry, I get your daily emails, like the one that gives you the SQL questions.
Yep.
But I never get to see any of the results, or when I try to practice and compare my answers, I don't see any.
So two things. One, you got to log into the portal. Two, that is something we're fixing up from a tech perspective because it's behind the landing page. So we'll fix that up. But yeah, thank you for that feedback. Yep,
All right.
no worries at all, my friend. Cool. Take it easy. Yep, I was saying you got to go to work. No worries, guys. Let's go. Let's keep the questions coming. But yeah, it's a lot of cameras off, so it's a very engineered crowd. It's funny. I'll go on some of these for like entrepreneurs or salespeople, and it's very like everybody has their camera on and wants to like throw questions at you, and then there's like engineer crowd. So find it funny. But yep, keep the questions coming. Caleb, what do you have? What questions do you have? Yeah, PM, good question. So PM asked, yeah, Keisha, absolutely. Thank you as well for attending. Wishing you the best. Hopefully we get to see you soon. PM asked, after the program, can you hold off on the job application in case someone gets another offer? How long can you hold it off? Yeah, it's a very unique case. Again, we're not going to be dicks, right? We're not going to be assholes. Like, if that's your situation, like, we got you. We're going to do everything reasonable to make good and make sure you get value. It's really that simple. Right? So, has that happened before? Yeah, we've had a person who had an emergency back in India, and so they had to fly back to see family for 4 months. And they were like, "Hey, can we pause this and I'll come back and continue?" Like, yeah, absolutely. He had already paid, and it was like, we're not just gonna let the timer keep going if they're not getting benefits. So yeah, absolutely. Someone asked, if we plot 1,000 jobs, does that mean we don't take the time to tailor our resume or cover letter? Again, I'm going to keep saying it because I love frameworks, right? I'm not trying to answer questions, specifically because there's 1,000 questions. Avoid extremes. So if you apply to 1,000 jobs, is that a good thing or a bad thing? That's a great thing because as you saw from, somebody else I was talking, they've applied to 100 jobs in a year. So if you can apply to 1,000 jobs in 2 months, do you think you're going to have a better chance? Yes. Does that mean you're going to get a job? Not necessarily, right? So you can do a little bit of both. You can apply to 1,000 jobs, and then you can tailor your resume or cover letter to the jobs you really want. You have these 10 big tech companies, Amazon, Google, etc. Maybe spend some extra effort on those. Maybe spend time reaching out to recruiters there. By the way, we're working on some cool stuff to do exactly that, personalize the outreaches, the resume, the cover letters, tailor all of that using tech, using AI. But again, the framework I want you to take away is avoid extremes. It doesn't have to be 1 or 0. You can do a little bit of each. Does that make sense? Yep, no worries. Absolutely, buddy. Someone DM'd me. It's like, am I tired yet? A little bit. My girlfriend walks 25,000 steps a day. That should be the goal, by the way. That's what the science is saying. I think it's over 10,000 for women, over 15,000 for men per day. So try to hit it. Chairs and sitting will they'll be the end of you. They'll be the ruin of you. So be careful with doing that, especially us engineers, because we're actually working. at a desk job and sitting all the time. So I even got this stuff. You know, avoid the carpal tunnel syndrome. I actually had some issues on my left one because I think my watch was like hitting this part, and so now I got to go check out what the hell's going on. I think someone told me it's probably carpal tunnel on my left. So be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful. Somebody was like, "You nailed it. You've answered my curiosity." Yeah. You can ask me stuff not related to data. It's okay. But walking and talking and doing is different than just walking and doing. It's the talking that gets you out of it. Plus, you know, running a business definitely gets you a little bit out of shape. I think I gained 10 pounds over the last year or two, so that's okay. We'll lose it back. But if any of you ever want to start a business, well, A, hit me up. I'm always down to chat. But B, you know, that's a little advice for you. Make sure you get your steps in. Make sure you do your meetings on the walk, whatever, because it is easy to let the stress get to you. It's easy to gain weight, whatever the case is. So, you know, just a little advice there. But I know it sounds simple, and everybody's probably thinking in their head like, "Oh, that's pretty simple, right? That's obvious, right?" You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what the data says, right? You'd be surprised what seems so simple isn't always easy to implement. So be very, very, very careful. But yeah, this thing, I actually think I took this from one of my previous jobs. So yeah. I worked at a startup and I took this when I left, and it's pretty good. Highly recommend it. Or get like the ergonomic. That's one thing I haven't done well. Gotta get the ergonomic stuff, keyboards, the mouses, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, recommend it. What other questions do you have? Chibuzo, I think I pronounced that correctly. Are you in the program yet?
So currently I don't have the finance to book for the training session, but I'm currently saving towards it. So and you answered my question, and I'm so glad because currently I'm a business intelligence analyst, and I have this passion to transition, and I've spoke with my manager, and he has responded, but is yet to inform when I can start working with him on some data engineering projects.
What did they tell you? What did they tell you in terms of working within your current job?
So he said that he will see what he can do, because in the organization we just have only just one data engineer. So I sense it that this is an opportunity to learn, and he has a lot of workload, a lot of projects around on it. So I see it as an opportunity to assist him and also to grow by working with him.
Yeah, I'll give you my take. It's not to ruffle any feathers, but you know, my advice is keep nudging your manager to make do on those things. Here's the thing, a lot of the times managers, they're not bad people, and it's not like they're gonna like not give you a data engineering project because they don't want you to see it or because they hate you or whatever. It's not that. They're just busy, right? They have so many things to do, and humans do things based on incentive, right? So if you have a company that isn't going to reward that manager for you getting promoted, then that manager isn't going to focus too much on that stuff. Again, it doesn't make him or her a bad person. Just be very careful. That was kind of my story, by the way. I was, not to call people out, but I was at Amazon, and it took me a long time, even though I was a top performer, to get promoted because I kept, you know, getting moved to different teams because they were like, "You're valuable, go here, go that." But that affects you because you have different managers. But then the managers I did have, they just had other things going on. They had their own incentives, their own things they want to do. And that's okay. Again, it doesn't make them a bad person. I get it. They have to move the business and move the team. So keep nudging your manager. But yeah, that's kind of why we started this company. It was like, hey, we realized the quickest way to get promoted or a salary raise or whatever the case is to just leave. To just go to a different company. I'm not saying you should do it, because if you like where you're at and you can get promoted internally or not in any rush, then cool. That works as well, right? Like I said before, some people are like, hey, I like this company. I want to just be here for the next year. I don't care if it takes me a year to get promoted. and that's perfectly fine. And I think that's cool. Me personally, I'm just impatient. I'm like, I want it this quarter. So how do we get it done? So that's kind of me, but I understand not everybody is that way.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll keep nudging him. Thank you.
Of course, absolutely. PM, you had a question?
Uh,
You say
sorry,
anything,
please. No, sorry. Let me
PM?
mute myself. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. What other questions do you guys have? Where is everybody in their journey? Are you guys like, you guys haven't learned anything yet? Are you guys going to start applying soon? Where catch me up. Where are you guys in your journey? Giovanni, what about you? I'm calling people out. Joseph, what about you? Somebody said still working on Python. Cool. Cool. That's totally okay. Are you in the program, Joseph? I think I've seen your name before. So if you are, hit up your Slacks. Go to the group calls.
Yeah, I'm not in the program. I just got on the call and just to get some more information.
Oh, good, man. Where are you in your process?
I'm in my undecisive process. Like
Meaning, like you don't know if you want to do data, or you don't know if you want to do.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I want to I would like to. I mean, I'm working in the network field right now, and I just felt data engineering may be a better route to go financially.
Got it. What's holding you back?
My finances. I gotta get with one of your reps and basically find out what the full cost is gonna be.
Do you know SQL?
No, I do not. I'm more of the networking side.
Do that, man. We got a free one here. Just do that. Like again, the biggest mistake I see, again, it's entirely free, right? You can go through it. The biggest mistake I see is just people like wait until they lose their job and they're like, oh, now I have to do this. And it's like, just take it easy. Start now. And you don't have to make it. It's again, I'm gonna say it again. Avoid extremes. It's not I have to make this decision now versus I don't. Right? It's you can dip your toe in the water, see if it's for you. Start something free, and if you like it, great. You can do us. You can do something else. You can do Coursera, whatever the case is. But my best advice for you is don't get paralysis by overanalysis. That's the biggest mistake I see. So just be careful there. And of course, if you have any questions, you know what to do.
Okay, thank you very much for the insight.
You got it. All right. Ravi, how you doing, my friend? What questions do you have?
I'm good. Actually, my wife is already joined this program. I am working as a HRIS analyst right now, and maybe in the future I might change to data. For now, I'm okay. I'm going with the flow, and currently my job is going okay.
Blessed. Glad to hear.
Yeah.
Glad to hear. If you got anything for me, let me know. Any questions based on anything, resume, applying, SQL, Python, AWS, what to do after you get a job over the next 10 years, where's the trend going, where AI, ML, shoot any questions away.
Yeah, my wife already joined your program, and she already spoke with one of your representatives, and she's taking course right now. I wish she get the job as soon as possible.
Love it. Someone said, what is the Python channel in Slack? No, so I mean, hit up your Slack channel and there'll be a Python instructor in there that you guys can do a mini mock interview with, or attend one of the group calls on Python. So there's always people in the channel ready to help you. I think one thing I want to see users more is utilize pinging that channel more. And there's always like, they know stuff such as like, oh, there's these cool tools that you can use to learn faster, blah, blah. So ping for like information and stuff. Okay, I'm gonna head out soon. I don't want to butcher that name. Abdullah Hahi. Any questions, my friend? Cool. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. Love you and leave you. Have a good rest of your week. Bye, guys.
Bye.